This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Rachel, what's the best birthday you've ever had in your whole life?
Probably not as good as the one that you're about to tell us about.
Wow, sad for you. Yes, any birthday you've had pales in comparison to Rita Panahi. A guest at Sky News Australia presenter Rita Panahi's 50th birthday on board a boat available to hire for $25,000 a day has thanked Australia's richest woman, Gina Rinehart, for hosting the event. What a sentence, first of all, just to kick off the story. Rinehart's representatives declined to answer questions last week when this masthead revealed details of Panahi's lavish birthday celebrations on board the boat, floating off the Miami coast, and her visit to US President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. But new images show Rinehart on board the same boat alongside Panahi, with one of the party guests thanking the mining and agriculture billionaire for organising and hosting the party in Florida. Former Hollywood reporter turned Florida socialite Tony Holt Kramer, who runs a Trump fan club called the Trumpettes, posted a series of pictures and videos from the party to her YouTube and Instagram pages. They included photos of Panahi and Rinehart together. During an interview that appears to be filmed on board the boat, Holt Kramer refers to Panahi as a walking female President Trump. A shoeless Panahi responds that the comment was the highest compliment. You're shaking your head there, Rachel Withers. What do you think about this? It sounds awesome.
Oh, I really wish I didn't know about this, which I didn't before you came to come on this. It is just like the cringiest interactions. I almost can't believe this is actually how people behave.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're a lefty. You're a lefty losing it right now, Rachel. You don't get it.
That is me, yeah.
That is right. So, yeah, she went there to Mar-a-Lago, didn't see Trump, obviously was hoping to catch some time with Donald, but I guess he's busy running an illegal war. So no Donald Trump for Rita for her 50th. Gina Rinehart organises her birthday, goes out on this yacht, $25,000 a day. There were birthday placemats with a newspaper from the Party Times from the year that Rita Panahi was born in 1976 with all the headlines. And she had a birthday cake.
I actually endorsed that one.
And a birthday cake with the tabloid columnist and TV presenter writing. Just listen to this. The birthday cake featured an image of Rita Panahi riding an AGM-88 HARM missile, a US-made weapon designed to neutralize air defense systems. These essentially break the doors down before they drop the real heavy-duty bombs. The AGM-88 and its more updated variants have been used in some of the recent US strikes on both Venezuela and Iran.
These are the bits where I can't believe that people actually do this. Even if you are like super in favor of this war in general,
Yes.
like to turn it into a birthday cake, that's what you want your cake to be, is a celebration of mass murder.
Yeah. Apparently Rita's into that. But also just how the fuck do these right-wing commentators present themselves as the voice of working people, like trying to play the whole right-wing populism game, as they love to do on Sky News, and then have a fucking billionaire, the country's richest woman, organise your 50th birthday party for you and obviously pay for everything? Like, how the fuck do they get away with maintaining those two positions at the same time?
I mean, like Trump's continued to get away with it. Like his whole brand was being this like billionaire, this like gold-plated, living in the White House of Florida, Mar-a-Lago. But it's kind of like part of their shtick. It doesn't make sense that that they can then align themselves with the working class. But I suppose it's aspirational to, there's people who say they voted for Trump because he was a billionaire.
Yeah.
Like they liked that about him. It's sort of that everyone's just a temporarily embarrassed millionaire thing, right?
Right, the theory that if I was a billionaire, I'd probably have a gold toilet like Donald Trump does. Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, that's the only explanation I can really see, because this has been going on for some time with Trump, and it hasn't, now we've got Gina Rinehart bankrolling One Nation here, and various people trying to point out that's, it doesn't quite make sense that Pauline Hanson is supposedly speaking for the little guy, but I don't think some voters care, unfortunately.
I'm saying rationality and reason isn't cutting through at the moment in the current political climate. I guess not. But I mean, and I know that Rita Paney isn't a journalist. Maybe she identifies as one. We shouldn't go to Sky News or the fucking Murdoch media empire for journalistic standards. But Jesus Christ, have some level of self-respect or dignity. You're supposed to be a journalist. You're supposed to hold power to account. And a billionaire is paying for your 50th birthday at another billionaire, i.e. the president's fucking casino.
Yeah,
What the hell is happening?
It's pretty amazing because like when I studied journalism, we were told like never to even accept like a free coffee, you know?
Oh, interesting. Okay, right.
And I think people have different standards of where you draw the line, but you shouldn't be taking, in my opinion, you shouldn't be taking anything that could create a perception of bias. And yeah, this is the other view on journalism we hear from Rita Paney, which is take what you can get.
Get a slice of that sweet action. The best part, of course, have you watched this video of Gina Reinhardt singing?
Unfortunately, I have.
You did watch this. Okay. Well, let's start the show maybe with this. Let's maybe play this track and then go into the theme song. But this was Gina Reinhardt with, what's her fucking face, Kramer Holt or whatever, and some other people at Rita Paney's birthday, singing a very patriotic Australian song. Australia's richest woman, a business leader, a CEO, a girl boss, singing one of the greatest songs of all time in a beautiful voice. Here we go.
Got to stand for the signs.
If you want the dole for life, free marijuana, vote Greens.
There's a bunch of ratbags and a bunch of idiots, and I got no time.
The Greens get way too good a run in the Australian media, way too free a run.
Frankly, I've always found the Greens to be a real serious danger.
Wonderful stuff. This is Serious Danger, a podcast about Green politics in Australia. It's not an official Greens Party podcast. It's produced by Michael the Griff Griffin, who's been working his ass off this week, which we appreciate very much. I am Tom Ballard, coming to you from Ngunnawal country in the nation's capital, here to talk to these clowns in Canberra and let them know what's going on. And our guest emerald for this week is a good friend of the show, a journalist, a writer, always writing great stuff at Crikey, co-hosts the Spin Cycle show on Triple R. Rachel Withers, lovely to see you again. Welcome back.
Likewise. Hope you're enjoying our fine capital of the...
Well, I just got here, but I'm sure we'll be fine. The shows will be fun. But then I'm getting the fuck out. How are you coping? The world's going really well right now. How are you coping on a day-to-day basis emotionally reading the news as you do?
I am escaping it as often as I can to my little island on the new Pokemon game. That's how I am coping, is escaping to a fantasy world.
Some people go to Epstein Island. You go to Pokemon Island. That's great.
It's very different. It's very, very different. I'm making the island nicer. I'm building little homes for Pokemon.
That's very
it's
sweet.
really kind of like the polar opposite of what's going on in the world right now. And it's a nice little brain off.
Well, I'm sorry. We're going to talk about those terrible things in the news on this show.
You're cutting into time. What have you been doing?
This is valuable Pokemon time. We're going to talk about the economics of war-flation. We'll talk about that term, about what is going on domestically and how the horrific and illegal war in Iran that is breaking out into the Middle East is affecting the economy here in Australia and the political fallout, the potential political fallout of that, and what the Greens and the left generally are going to say and do about it. And if we have time, and I do think we'll make time, we will be making fun of Tim Wilson. So that's important. Quick shout out to our patrons who support the show. Thank you so much. We love you. Rory, Esther, Deb, Jared, Leonie, Natasha, and Darcy, thanks for becoming Danger Dogs. You got a new Patreon episode out this week, a fantastic conversation. Emerald and I had a chat to Professor Toby Walsh, who's emeritus scientia. I don't know. He's a very smart guy who knows a lot about AI. We talked to him about data centers, the political economy of data centers, what they're doing, how bad they are, how big they are, the ones that they're building. Really great chat, and you can have a listen to it. Just $3 a month, or even less than that if you become a yearly member, as some people have done. It's because of you we can keep doing this show. So thank you very much. Patreon.com/SeriousDangerAU. We also released a bonus episode this week that was free for everyone. This is how crazy times are right now, Rachel. We had a member of the Labor Party on Serious Danger. Can you believe it?
I listened to it, actually.
Really? Oh, what do you think?
I mean, I have a lot of time for Marcus Strom, and it was an excellent conversation. I actually interviewed Marcus at the Labor conference 3 years ago, where he moved the anti-AUKUS motion.
Wow.
And I am always fascinated by how people on the left, which methods of change they try to engage in. And yeah, it was a really, really smart conversation between the two of you. I thought, like, a lot of respect both ways, and yeah, just a good, smart chat between two smart leftists.
It's very kind of you, Rachel. That means a lot. If you missed it, Marcus Strom is the national convener of Labor Against War, a member of Labor Against War, emailed the show, is a long-time listener of Serious Danger, couldn't believe it, and sort of laid out their thinking about where they're coming from, and eventually put me in touch with Marcus. You can have a listen to that full conversation about what it means. These ALP members who are trying to organise within the Labor Party to try and shift the party when it comes to AUKUS, and disentangling us basically from the US war machine. Challenging. Hopefully I did a decent job of, prosecuting the green line and doing some propaganda. If you think I didn't do that, please at Rachel or Emerald with all your concerns. Or get in touch with the show. We love hearing from you. Finally, some quick plugs. Please indulge me here. Thank you very much to everyone who's come see me on tour so far. The Melbourne Comedy Festival kicks off this week. My show, Be Funny Challenge Impossible, is on at it. If you only want to associate your comedy with things that benefit the Australian Greens, or the Victorian Greens, 2 great gigs for you. This coming Tuesday, March 24th, a gig called Make Politics Fun Again. That's a fundraiser for the Greens Brunswick campaign. Congrats to Adam Pulford, who was recently announced as winning pre-selection for the seat of Brunswick. Dr. Tim Reid, very sadly, having to step down for that position and not recontest the seat because of health issues. Adam Pulford, local councillor, he's stepping up. He's great. Come and have a laugh, raise some money for that campaign. That's happening at Stay Gold. I'm hosting. Kirsty Webeck, Freddie Arthur, Cassie Workman's going to be there, and Noah Szto as well. Details in the show notes. And on Thursday, April the 9th, there's a Giggle for Gab fundraiser for Gabrielle De Vietri in Richmond at Evie's Bar and Disco. Very similar comedians of that lineup. And a special surprise guest from the UK. Again, would love to see you there. Good people of Naarm if you're around. And I can hereby officially announce that we are coming back to Meange in Brisbane for a live show in May. Saturday, May 9th at 2 p.m. at the Good Chat Comedy Club. Live on stage, Tom al-Ard and Comrades. Emerald Moon is out of the country, of course. She lives in Brisbane. She loves Brisbane. She would love to be there, but she's going to be on holidays, which is fair enough. It's still going to be super cool and fun, and those tickets have just gone on sale. Saturday, May 9th at 2 p.m. at Good Chat Comedy Club. I'm in town for the Brisbane Comedy Festival and would love to see Danger Dogs turn out for that.
I was going to say exactly the same at exactly the same time. I'll be doing an event in Melbourne for the Melbourne Writers Festival, which hasn't been publicised yet. But if you're not in Brisbane, if you're in Melbourne, same date, same time, I'm pretty sure. Keep your eyes peeled for that.
Well, okay. And if Brisbane people think you're flying to Melbourne for that gig, don't do that. Stay in Brisbane. Come to my gig. I'd appreciate that.
Don't fly to either place. Just go to the show if that's where you are.
Good advice.
It's too expensive to fly now.
And finally, just before we get into it, obviously we're recording this on Friday. Saturday is a big election day for the state of South Australia. We had a chat to Rob Sims earlier in the year about the campaign, where the Greens are coming from. Best of luck to all involved. I'm obviously tipping a Greens government. I think that's the most likely outcome. Hope it all goes well, and this will obviously be coming out after that. We'll pick through the results on next week's show. Have you been following South Australian politics very closely, Rachel? What's your prediction here?
More than I'd like to be, especially because they're treating this as the first big electoral test of the One Nation surge. So I will be watching on Saturday night. In case there's a Greens government, yes, but also to see what happens in the battles between Liberals and One Nation candidates. There's no Nationals in South Australia, but in all of those Conservative seats, what's going to happen and whether the One Nation surge is real.
Well, there's talk of a complete wipeout for Liberals, like could actually reduce to 1 or 0 seats. And
I'm actually not tipping that. I think this will be a bit of a fizzer for One Nation, but I'm prepared to be wrong, and everybody listening to this will know if I am.
Is the idea? So the idea is they'd be wiped out with one nation winning seats. I assume it's also Labor taking some Liberal seats as well.
Yes,
Labor riding very high.
I could see that happening. Yes, I think probably an increased majority for the Malinowskis government there.
Yeah. And Cory Bernardi, it seems like, for One Nation probably will get in at the top of the upper house ticket, which will suck. But anyway, the Greens are really hopeful and talked about their chances about certainly increasing their upper house representation. And there is one lower house seat that is a kind of real chance for the Greens. So good luck to all involved. And I guess we'll find out next week.
So how do you feel about the war in Iran?
I think Trump's doing the right thing, honestly.
Why so?
I got no comment on that.
You don't know why?
Nah, I'm just taking a guess.
You're just guessing that he's doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think Trump's doing the right thing.
Is this a joke?
What?
Is this a joke?
Yeah.
No,
a joke?
It's not. All right, you can fucking drive home, bro. Or walk home, sorry.
Damn, I don't know what just happened. All right.
But he doesn't even know why.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just think, like, it's not good for the economy. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't really give a fuck about the war. Smoke weed, get money, fuck bitches. Hell yeah.
Okay, so apparently this is still an open question. Maybe you can tell me on this front, Rachel. You can clarify. Is Australia at war?
Is it ridiculous? We are at collective self-defense.
Oh, God.
I think the thing with this question, it's exasperating watching politicians weasel their way out of any question, but this one in particular seems kind of important. And watching them use the same particular phrase that they've got for this answer is exasperating. But also technically at war, not technically at war. Some experts actually say we are. It doesn't. Almost the technicality doesn't matter. We're involved. The
We're
government
in there, baby.
is doing things they're sending things and they're supporting things and I don't really at war we're involved. We're part of it.
Yeah. We're definitely in there, yes. I mean, an Iranian projectile hit near Australia's headquarters at the al-Ard Air Base in the United Arab Emirates this week, damaging an accommodation block and a medical facility. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed that no Australian personnel were injured in the strike. Albanese could not confirm if Iran directly targeted the al-Ard base while maintaining Australia was not at war. Asked directly if Australia was now at war, Albanese said no and refused to elaborate. Also this week, we had Defence Minister Richard Marles saying that data gathered by an Australian surveillance aircraft can be accessed by the US and is possibly helping pinpoint its strikes on Iran. On Tuesday, Marles confirmed that intelligence collected by the surveillance plane is available to the US, saying it wouldn't make sense to be operating this capability without providing that information in that way in terms of maintaining the defence of those countries and the security of the Australians who are living there. But there you go. Australian military support is helping the US in their strikes on Iran. Yes, we're involved.
We're not just there defending. We're helping someone. We're not just there not helping anyone. Yeah, no. Okay, cool.
We're defensing their brains out is how I sort of put it. I mean, how long can this denial keep going? To me, it's if a member of the ADF dies in the course of this, people are not going to put up with, they died in the course of collective self-defense. That is surely going to be a line in which we're going to say, we are at war here and Australians are dying because of this illegal war that we're participating in.
I think they will continue to run that line. I think actually the more unpopular this war gets, and it was immediately clear that it was quite unpopular, I think they have been backtracking on the strongest show of support was that initial statement after the US and Israel bombed Iran. And I think they have been trying to get themselves at least in words as far away from this thing as possible. So I can't see them changing that line. And I think they're going to double down the worse the economy gets because of it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, I want to talk to that. I mean, obviously, just a disclaimer, obviously we know that the victims, the people who are truly bearing the blunt of this horrific illegal war is the people of Iran and Lebanon and surrounding countries. I mean, what's happening in Lebanon is just an absolute disgrace and just a total horror show. And I hope that listeners of this show are fully aware that you and I and everyone in the movement is conscious of that is obviously where the true horror is happening in this disastrous conflict. But we do want to take a look at the economic fallout. This phrase war-flation has been doing the rounds. I think you're a fan. Do you like the phrase war-flation? Does that make you feel good?
I hate it. Take two words that I hate to hear and put them together. And somehow works in the sum of its parts.
I'd say it's a very clumsy portmanteau, but I guess it does describe this thing, which is this
cringe, yeah.
these increasing prices and the economic fallout of, once again, this terrible and illegal war. Treasurer Jim Chalmers has warned that the war in the Middle East is likely to significantly damage the Australian economy in the coming year. Releasing new Treasury figures on Wednesday, Chalmers said that sustained high energy costs from a long-term war in Iran would send GDP 0.6% lower in 2027, potentially costing the national economy $16.5 billion. Chalmers warned that the possibility of inflation peaking in the high fours or even higher this year is very real. He said almost half of the impact to GDP is due to the impact of higher oil. The other half is due to broader consequences. So it seems pretty bad. I'd say it sounds like it's really bad. Good thing that this government isn't supporting this war. I mean, that would be really awkward if you sort of talk about, gosh, all these terrible things that are happening in the economy now is because of this conflict that we totally support because we supported the US and Israeli illegal strikes on Iran a couple of weeks ago. Good thing they've managed to avoid that criticism.
Well, look, on the one hand, I agree, that they are involved in this war and therefore they should wear the consequences. At the same time on this one, I'm a bit torn because you can see the coalition out there trying to say Labor is to blame for the economic crisis we're in. They're always to blame for inflation, and it is playing out in polls that voters are blaming the current government for what is happening. But ultimately, I don't actually think voters should blame or shouldn't actually treat our government as the source of this economic pain, even though they're backing the thing that is causing it. Like whether or not we were involved, whether or not our government decided to immediately endorse what Trump and Netanyahu did a couple of weeks back, we'd be feeling this pain anyway. So in a way, it's not their fault. Like it actually isn't, even though they're endorsing the thing that is causing it. Like there's a lot of semantics going on there, but at the end of the day, they're going to wear the pain. But it really has actually annoyed me watching the coalition and various commentators try to say this is about Labor and their reckless spending. This is Labor's fault. It's always Labor's fault. When technically it isn't here. It's
just not
Donald Trump's fault.
Yes. No, I take your point. And look, they tried that shit even when we had a global pandemic and Russia invaded Ukraine, right? Like the ultimate example of supply shocks that you could not make up ever, which is clearly that wasn't Scott Morrison's fault, and that wasn't Anthony Albanese's fault. Yet still, the political attacks still come. I take your point. I guess I just sort of. It's so infuriating to see a government want.
I would argue people on the left didn't try to blame Scott Morrison for the initial shock of the pandemic. Obviously, and eventually he fucked up, but I think initially people got behind the coalition government and what they had to do to spend a lot of money, get a lot of money out the door. Accepting we're all in this together. When it comes to when Labor is in power and a global economic shock hits, the coalition always blames Labor for the impact on the economy. It drives me mental.
Totally, I agree. And yes, as soon as they lost government, the coalition did not give a Labor government the grace of saying, well, yes, there was an invasion of Ukraine and we had a massive pandemic, which obviously did play a role in the global, and it was a global problem that was affecting everybody. That's what they should have done. They didn't do that. So what I'm saying is those political attacks will come regardless. But yes, and I appreciate the fact that even if Labor had not supported these strikes and had come out and condemned them, we'd still be in the same economic situation that we are. It's just a very frustrating double standard that the government wants to both simultaneously argue, we support these strikes and these were good, but man, all the consequences that flew from them that were so predictable. You're supporting attacks on Iran and be like, wow, there's all these oil shocks. This is crazy. That's a ridiculous position.
If you weren't in favor of global economic crisis, you would probably not have been in support of starting a war, which there were. So, yeah. At the end of the day, they supported the thing.
Yeah, pretty bad. So we are seeing what that looks like here in Australia, at least in part. On Tuesday, the RBA delivered its second rate rise for the year, bringing the cash rate to 4.1%. The board's decision was made by a narrow majority where 5 members voted for the 0.25 percentage rise, while the remaining 4 voted to leave the rate unchanged. Australia's Reserve Bank is one of the only central banks that hiked rates so soon, with those in the US, UK, European Union, Japan, Canada, Switzerland, and Sweden all expected to leave rates on hold this week. So even in the global context, Australia is still worse on this. Our central bank punishing us for being very naughty, because households have just been invading Iran too much, and so they really need to cut back on that. Governor Michelle Bullock said they had no choice. Inflation of 3.8% is just too high, and there's too much damn demand in the economy. And yeah, I think she's right. I think households have been living up way too large at the moment. They've just been buying champagne and oysters and stuff, and just bombing Iran. And hopefully this sends the message to those households, to those mortgage holders, myself fucking included, that we should stop doing that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, when they say there's no choice, there's always a choice. That's a cop-out. You can't make a choice and then say there was no choice. It just seems to be, no matter what the cause of inflation, it could be COVID, it could be holiday spending, it could be bombing Iran. The solution is always the same, which is squeeze people. And it's, as you say, like it is like a punishment. It's trying to slow spending and make sure people don't have money to spend. But at the same time, in this instance, people are already feeling squeezed by the economic impacts of the war. You don't actually need to. They've already had an economic hit, petrol prices, like we're going to see other prices going up. So could you not have just sat tight and waited for that? No, they had to, as usual, make sure that mortgage holders had no spare money.
We defeat this evil inflation rate. I mean, again, there are so many elements of this that is outrageous. First of all, inflation at 3.8% is not that terrible, all right? The RBA's target rate is between 2 and 3%, so it's higher than that, sure. In 2022, it was like hitting 7.3%. Like it was drastically higher. That was like the worst of the cost of living crisis. I understand it's outside the bank, but people are still the band rather, but people are still dealing with the economic fallout of the past couple of years, the cost of living crisis. And yes, as you point out, Rachel, are about to be slugged or are already being slugged by fucking insane. Sometimes, over $3 a litre at some petrol stations in this country, which obviously has flow-on effects to the price of literally everything else in the economy.
Everything gets moved by a car or a truck.
Yeah. And again, I just come back to this. We've talked about this on the show before. I looked into this for my book, but every time I think about the system of the RBA, I really do lose my mind. We have an independent bank, right? Public bank. We're not allowed to bank with the Reserve Bank of Australia, by the way. That's completely unacceptable. But we've got this public bank. Their job is to look after two things: to manage inflation and to preserve full employment. Now, when you hear full employment, you think, oh, that probably means that everyone who wants a job and is able to work is able to get a job, right? No, you're an idiot. That's stupid. No, full employment under the neoliberal economic model is something like 4.5% unemployment, okay? So we're talking about well over 500,000 Australians out of work is considered the desirable level of unemployment to keep a lid on inflation, right? If you've got a big reserve of unemployed people, that means workers are less empowered, workers are less likely to push for and win wage increases, so that keeps a lid on unemployment. That's not to mention all the underemployed people too, that could actually bring out the underutilization in the economy at around 10%, right? But this is good. This is what we actually want.
It's ideal to have this segment of the population unemployed. We also want to make sure they can't afford to live. Because we want to incentivize them to get employed. So we better make sure they can't live on unemployment.
Yes, it's deliberate unemployment. We can't pay them payments above the poverty line because that would be a disincentive for them to try and get a job. But you don't want them to get a job. You want to maintain this level of unemployment. It's insane.
The RBA wants a small percentage of the country desperately suffering.
Yes,
that's
they want unemployment to go up, but they're not allowed to say that, of course. But of course, that is actually what they want. Unemployment went up from 4.1 to 4.3% in February. Okay, so we know unemployment is coming up. The RBA is saying, fantastic, that'll be great. Also, the RBA has no fiscal policy levers at all. Their only lever is raising or lowering interest rates. Okay, they're completely independent from the government, who does have the fiscal tools. both these institutions just get to sort of blame each other or just shift responsibility back and forth to actually approaching economic conditions. The government gets to come out and say, wow, this rate rise is really bad. It's really going to hurt Australians, but sorry, can't do anything about it because of this independence of the RBA. Even though it's not independent, they do have the legislative power to overrule RBA decisions, but of course, they're not allowed to do that. I mean, it's just maddening. And the idea that anyone is sort of saying this is a good system, this is actually working well, and this system of central bank independence has served the country well, I think is just completely blind to all the contradictions that are embedded into that system and how much suffering it causes on ordinary people on a daily basis, you know?
Yeah. And look, to bring it back to the way the coalition is playing this again, you've just explained perfectly how the interest rate system works, what the RBA tries to do. And then, of course, we again have the coalition out there blaming the Albanese government for the interest rate rise when, as you say,
right,
this is the system that everyone has agreed, everyone in the political class has agreed is how we do things.
Yes.
But then they're going to blame the government for spending that has supposedly led to this.
Right.
Yeah. I saw an interesting headline in the AFR today suggesting that this rate rise is going to encourage Labor to spend more in the budget, or like some of the constraints that they would have been feeling around not spending have been lifted, or as they put it, Jim Chalmers has lost the argument that he might be able to have with ministers about trying to like tamp down on spending. So does that mean we spend more in the budget or less? I'm not sure, but
God. what a good system. Again, I think if we had democratic control over something as important as interest rates in the economy, you could actually have a much more cohesive, comprehensive approach to fiscal and monetary policy, which would mean that you could actually prioritize people's well-being and you could control all of that. But that's not what people want to do, apparently. What happened with RBA reform? Has that happened? Have they got new people on the board? What do? They just publish their decisions now? There's still no workers' representatives on there. What's
boards? There's a board for one thing and a board for another. But I don't think it was like they were very watered down changes that, were essentially ones that didn't make any substantive difference. I have to say, I don't know if there's more coming or if there is anything that hasn't actually been implemented from those reforms yet, but they were never going to like systematically change things.
Yeah, great. I mean, they all seem to be operating on this like fear, this horror of like what happened in the 1970s and making sure that doesn't repeat. And there was an interesting piece in the Saturday paper called Welcome to War-flation, your favorite term, by Stephen Long. I thought this was interesting. The RBA is habitually worried that workers will respond to inflation by demanding and receiving higher wages, producing a wage price spiral. That certainly happened during the oil shocks of the 1970s, but workers don't have the same level of bargaining power today. Studies in Australia and overseas show that profits, not wages, drove post-pandemic inflation. Prices rose as businesses maintained or fattened their profit margins and passed on higher costs to consumers. A recent paper by economists from the Australia Institute suggests that they are still doing so. And this is what we're saying. We're already starting to see this ahead of this new inflation crisis, new oil shock, right? Businesses are clearly saying, everyone's talking about inflation, great time to jack up your prices and say, sorry, blame Trump and Netanyahu for this. Sorry, give us $20 more, please.
You have to wonder, like, just I feel the amount of times I've heard the line that that the inflation was driven by profits, not wages, especially through the kind of pandemic inflation crisis. How many times we've heard that, and yet this is still the solution. The solution is always to punish the people.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Also, a great piece in the ABC from Gareth Hutchins, their economic reporter, included this little tidbit. In October last year, 2 economists at the International Monetary Fund, bunch of lefties at the IMF there, published an interesting paper that found that inflation targeting central banks performed no better than non-inflation targeting central banks in the wake of the 2022 inflation surge. They said the inflation targeting framework was designed to manage demand-driven shocks, not supply-driven shocks. Okay, so again, when we're talking about a inflation targeting central bank, we're saying that one that was quite aggressive, like jacking up interest rates constantly to try and address inflation, which again is the only fucking tool they have. the study apparently is looking at central banks around the world. The ones that did that did no better than the ones that said, actually, we're going to wait this out. And we recognize these are supply shocks, and jacking up interest rates just hurts ordinary people and doesn't mean that the people who are the most well off can pay to take some heat out of the economy and bring inflation down.
I hadn't heard that IMF finding before, and I do think that is another one that is worth repeating regularly, that it actually doesn't make a difference. Like, all of this pain isn't actually going to improve how quickly we get out of it.
Spread the word. All right, so the Greens, the left generally, what the alternative to this, rather than jacking up interest rates, what should we be doing now? I mean, the Greens, of course, would say that the government can intervene and overrule RBA decisions. They've had that fight before when there was all the talk about reforming the RBA board. Jim Chalmers is never going to do that, but it's important for everyone to know that the government is choosing to not do that. I think that's key. There's been calls for free public transport while petrol is so expensive. Pitched as a temporary relief measure, but of course we want free public transport all the time. I think the government is, getting all the state leaders together for a national cabinet kind of situation, and the Greens are saying, give the money to make public transport free for as long as possible while we ride out this crisis. Seems pretty reasonable to me.
Certainly there was an election coming up, so they would pinch that policy from the Greens.
Yes, they'd love that. Yes, just sit around. I mean, in Victoria now, it's sort of like everyone except me seems to get free public transport. I'm not a child or a pensioner on the weekend or whatever. That all seems to they're the loopholes.
It's not free on the weekends anymore. It was just to celebrate our glorious new tunnel.
All hail the tunnel. But another thing you could do is maybe tax some of the insane amounts of money that come in from our resources industry, which seems like a really cool thing to do. Again, Stephen Long in this piece of Saturday paper saying that there are winners from all this war-flation. Among them, Australian gas producers, Santos and Woodside Energy. Australia is one of the world's biggest LNG exporters. Companies that exploit the nation's gas reserves are enjoying huge windfall gains as LNG prices skyrocket, just as they did after Russia invaded Ukraine, and their export revenues almost doubled. So again, this idea of a windfall tax, the ACTU is talking about this, saying, all this money is going out here. When you get an oil shock, that's a boon for all these LNG companies. Why don't we impose a 25% export tax on that, redistribute some of that wealth, use those resources and that money to help people get through this cost of living crisis? And a little political party called the Australian Greens tried to do just that. This is a story from Tuesday. A push by the Greens to implement a 25% export tax on gas exports has failed to progress through the Senate following a vote last week. Last week, the Greens forced a vote in the Senate on its proposal for a 25% tax on gas exports. Senator Steph Hodgins-May made an amendment to a motion relating to domestic gas reserves that called on the government to subject all gas production to a 15% minimum domestic reserve. The amendment was voted down 8-43. Aww. The Greens tried to do a good thing and then it didn't work out. Oh, well.
It's a big if not now when, with all of the sort of the PRRT and the fact that we don't actually tax gas properly. Like, war or not, profit spike or not, like, that is something that needs to be addressed. And this is like a really easy time to do it because people would be really into that right now. They would always be into it according to the polling. But at this moment, there's a real justification for it and they still can't do it. And I think it's worth noting One Nation also voted against it, despite the fact that they're out there calling for us to, tax gas exports, tax things in their populist messaging. But then when presented with a chance to vote for such tax, nope.
Yes. No
Not
thanks.
Like
Well, tell you who else is coming around is the fucking government who literally just voted against this Greens motion. So on Friday morning, we get this news story. The Prime Minister's department has requested options to impose a new tax on gas giants, the ABC can reveal, as the government tries to shield Australians from the economic shock from the Middle East war.
What a
document
great
prepared
idea.
by... God, if only someone had thought of this recently, like within the last week or something. If only we had a chance.
No, it's all good because they've come up with it now.
Great. Last week, Labor, the Coalition and One Nation teamed up in the Senate to vote down a Greens amendment calling for a levy on gas companies' windfall profits. But the PM&C request suggests the federal government was quietly seeking advice about whether to act on a growing campaign from crossbenchers, unions and economists to impose such a tax. Larissa Waters has said we're fully on board. They've sent a letter to Albanese who said, the Greens will support this if you get it through. But I mean, I just read these stories and I think, wow.
Funny. They should write it down to be funny.
Good prank, Larissa. That was good. But it's like, how much reform out there? How many good ideas? How much need? How much funding just completely gets spiked or delayed unnecessarily because supporting it would provide the Greens with some kind of a win? I'm sure there's just a huge amount of reform that we never really realised is just completely gone. Yeah.
But I mean, that's also how a lot of progressive policy works, which is that you have, the Greens putting something up. And then you have research centres doing research on that policy. Slowly, it starts to infiltrate. It starts to become more like obvious to everyone that in this case, this is a really, really popular policy, right? It has been for many years now. Like, I have been writing, a daily newsletter for a couple of years now, but I swear every other week there was a stat showing like 80% of Australians wanted this. But this is how it works. It sort of like chips away over time. And it is a shame that it takes this long, but it starts to then get into the Labor ranks. And you've got people in the left of Labor pushing from within. And then, and then a war breaks out and finally you finally like come up with this idea of your own volition, apparently. But
yes,
it is unfortunately how so many policies work. I think policies like other policies that are currently Greens policies that I think will one day be government policy. It's like dental and Medicare, things like that. Like it'll get there. It's just they want to do it on their timeline.
But I want it now, Rachel.
They'll want full credit for it when they do it. I mean, like stage 3 tax cut reform, eventually they like do it and they're like patting themselves on the back, despite the fact, how many times did the Greens try to change the stage 3 tax cuts? It just seems to be the way that we do progressive change in this country. It doesn't have to be this way.
I don't like. Guys, if you want the policy, why not come to the party that has the idea first and actually doesn't do a shitty compromise version of it, but actually has the good idea earlier and says, this is the good idea, let's do it now while it's good and popular and will address issues. Why wait years and years and years to get a shittier version of it? That's my pitch. I don't know.
It's me. It beats me. Yeah. There would be a whole lot of money they could have raised in what they've been in government for 6 5. How many years have these guys been in?
They won in 2022. This is their 4th year.
That's 4 years ago. Think of 4 years of properly taxing gas exports, like what they could have had right from the start.
None of us like receiving bills. But imagine a $200 billion bill. That's exactly what we'll get with Bill Shorten. Labor's new retirement tax, higher small business taxes and other new taxes will take more than $200 billion from the pockets of Australians. Don't let Labor's higher taxes shorten Australia's future. Labor, the bill Australia can't afford.
Speaking of the Greens being correct about something, talking about it for fucking ages and needing everyone to take so goddamn long to come around and realise that there might be a good reform on the table here. We've got the budget coming up in May and there are more and more rumours swirling around about what kind of juicy tax reform might be involved, especially when it comes to changes to the capital gains tax discount and negative gearing. And that speculation heated up particularly this week as a Greens led set an inquiry into the CGT discount, handed down its final report this week on the operation of the discount. And according to reporting around it, we had this. The Senate-selected inquiry into the operation of the capital gains discount has handed down a majority report supported by Labor senators, which found the tax break is skewing home ownership towards investors, disproportionately benefiting wealthy Australians and distorting productive investment. In additional comments, the Greens called for the CGT discount to be abolished for investment properties and substantially reined in across all asset classes, along with broader tax reform. I know you've been writing a fair bit about this, Crikey. Rachel, particularly during the actual inquiry itself, looking at some of the critics that were submitting evidence as to why we can't possibly touch the CGT discount. I guess, can you give us an overview?
Suspects.
Yes, give us an overview about this inquiry and what it means and the kind of recommendations.
Well, I mean, in many ways, this conversation predates the inquiry because there has been talk that the government is working on this even prior to that report coming down and Labor, the Labor members of that committee voting for it. There has been this idea that Jim Chalmers once again wants to push for a tax reform that, is about addressing intergenerational inequality, but I would also say just about addressing inequality. They'd rather couch it that way, but it's high income earners and rich people who are benefiting from capital gains.
Yes.
A lot of them are older, but also it's just like they just don't want to say like we want to reduce inequality. But yes, Chalmers is the one who wants to do more progressive things on the economy, and Albanese is always the handbrake, which is counterintuitive because Chalmers is Labor, nominally Labor right, Albanese nominally Labor left. But I do think Chalmers wants to do this. I wrote a piece sort of when I was first hearing about it for Crikey called Capital Pains, I'll Eat Humble Pie if the PM actually does something substantive on our tilted tax system, which was like, honestly, at this point, we've had a few like Jim Chalmers flies the kite, Anthony Albanese comes and makes him put the kite away moments that when it first came was being talked about, and anonymous sources say Treasury is modelling things. I was pretty sure that it wasn't going to happen, and friends who also want to see reforms to things like native gearing and capital gains are like, oh, he's going to do it. I'm like, no, he's not. But this conversation has lasted much longer than I thought it would. And it's still going. And I can't believe the budget is still 2 months away because I don't know how much longer we can play this will they, won't they game. And they never announce it like sooner than then. I think the fact is, I don't think the government yet knows if they're going to do it. I think we are relying here on the spine of Anthony Albanese, the brittle spine of the Prime Minister, who is ultimately going to give his nod or his slight head shake to this decision. I'm really hoping they do. That inquiry from the Greens heard from a lot of very good experts and really big, heavy-hitting economists who said it was a great idea. And then heard from, of course, the real estate lobby and the Prosperity Institute. So ultimately, we are relying on the strength of Albanese's spine at this point.
Right.
I think the Greens-led inquiry that a couple of Labor senators did vote for changes to capital gains was really helpful for this process. There was really big economic heavy hitters in there. Your Ken Henrys and your Bernie Frasers, those big economist names in Australia, they were all saying really something's got to give on capital gains. And then
they're saying get rid of it entirely, right? There's been a lot of talk about let's reduce the discount a little bit. My understanding is Bernie Fraser, who's former RBA governor, Ken Henry, yes, who did that big tax review for the Rudd government. I heard they were saying scrap it entirely and reduce it to zero.
One of them was. One of them was particularly strong in calling out the intergenerational inequality of it, even though I dismissed that immediately. It is relevant and it is why it is probably the best reason for why it's going to happen. We're not good at talking about addressing inequality in Australia, but this intergenerational piece, it's just pretty hard to ignore the unfairness of it now. But you had also in that inquiry, I, for my sins, read the submissions from all the different lobby groups that put in submissions, essentially saying the sky will fall in if you do this.
Or that it won't help at all, right? It seems to be...
It's all the usual.
Yeah, well, it's either, this will destroy the economy, or it's not actually going to address the problem in any way at all, and actually you shouldn't even bother doing it. It seems to be two different
both
versions.
in the same submission. I feel I'm not going to name a think tank that I think tried to do that. But yeah, look, you get the property industry and the real estate lobby saying, but then there'll be less houses for people to rent, always forgetting about landlords will have to sell and then there won't be enough rental properties, forgetting about the fact that who buys those rental properties when landlords sell them? Ideally, owner occupiers.
Yep.
But they make the same argument again and again and again. I think the scare campaign could be coming. It doesn't seem to have a lot of teeth at this point. Obviously, those are the usual suspects. If Albanese does give the green light to this, we'll see.
Well, so in your writing, it was really interesting. The polling has about 40% support for reducing the discount, 17% opposed, and then the rest basically don't know or neutral, because obviously it's a pretty technical tax reformy kind of issue. Even though this issue has been around for a long time and people talk about it, it's perhaps not popular knowledge about the way that discount interacts with negative gearing to make investment properties such an attractive asset, which is why when Howard introduced that discount in the late 90s, we saw a massive takeoff in house prices because those tax settings in combination with very low interest rates meant that a whole bunch of investors, just flooded into the market, sending property prices soaring. But anyway, there's a bit to that.
That's important. It's the important explanation of like in economics terms why it's so bad and why it drives up property prices and stacks the debt.
Not very sexy though, of course. Not like foreigners taking my house.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing with a lot of these tax reforms and what happened to Labor when they did actually bring some of these to an election is that they are just not well understood. And they're intentionally quite complex and opaque. And I think as I write in that piece, it's ripe for a scare campaign because people don't understand. You will get people thinking that this is about a tax on the family home or something. Yeah. Like they love to say this is a new tax when actually it is the removal of a tax exemption. And just on investment properties, may I say, like I don't think the government is going to go anywhere near the one on people's primary residence. But you will get all sorts of things from the right, from the Murdoch media, implying that this is about hurting and taxing the little guy.
Yeah. Just some basic facts that, again, is coming out of Greens research and in their inquiry. It costs the budget about $20 billion a year in foregone revenue through this discount. 59% of the benefit goes to the top 1% of earners. It's bad. And as I say, that interaction with the negative gearing tax settings really does lead to it. I mean, I also think Labor has to argue for this with one hand tied behind its back, right? Because they are not prepared to say, we don't want house prices to keep going up. We want to address housing affordability, but we don't want to, but house prices should definitely keep going up. Nor do they feel prepared to say that property investments are bad. Like it's actually a bad thing to have heaps of property investors in a private market and people, making shitloads of money exploiting people's need for shelter during a housing crisis. That's a little too bolshy for them. So they can't even make that pitch, it seems.
It probably is too bolshy for them, but I would say they have an example of how to do it in Member of Wentworth, Allegra Spender, who is also on the Let's Reform capital gains train. Mostly she has a tax paper out that is looking at a lot of the intergenerational inequality issues. And she has really pleasantly surprised me, I think, with her willingness to kind of call out this issue. Like there was a headline in the ABC, MP whose electorate gets largest capital gains tax discount wants to rein it in. And this is something I've actually long argued about the Teals, and I think a lot of people in the Greens disagree with me, that I actually think they had the capacity to be economically progressive if they chose to be, if they understood that even though they represent the rich, there's plenty of rich people who understand that the system is cooked. And it looks like Allegra Spender, like she's been putting out quite good content on this on her social media as well. Like she is going to be one of the key voices in this one, I think.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, credit to Pocock as well, making the case for 25% tax on gas exports to sort of take up that mantle as well. So, yeah, to take the wins where they can get them. Again, probably won't help out in the revolution or the rise up of the proletariat against the capitalist classes. The Teals may not be joining us on the barricades, but you take the wins where you can get them, I guess, yeah.
But, yeah, look, Spender has always fascinated me as, like, someone who, like, does seem to want to do something, but is kind of, for a while there was paralyzed by the fact she represents the richest electorate in the country. But at least when it comes to tax reform, she is, I always say with her, and I've said it in a couple of capital gains pieces, you kind of have to wait to see her put her money where her mouth is when the vote actually happens. But she's saying the right things at this point.
If you don't mind, I'd love to read just a small extract from your piece in February when you were talking about I'll eat humble pie if this is wrong. I just thought this was great writing. Ultimately, I predict Albanese will struggle to hold his nerve on investor tax discounts because it seems he simply doesn't get it. A bootstraps boomer. He doesn't seem to grasp how difficult the system has become for those without assets, given how many he himself owned as prices skyrocketed. Albanese has gone from fighting Tories to becoming one. A man who prefers not to rock any boats, least of all the mega yachts. Fuck yeah, Rachel Withers. That's great stuff.
I remember writing that. That's nice. It sounded like that today. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I really care about this issue. And whenever it's Albanese being the handbrake on progress, it fascinates me and it consumes like a lot of my thoughts. Is like, what happened to the man who was, grew up in public housing? It's such a cliche to say it, but where is his beating progressive heart?
Slow but steady. All right, I know that you got to go, and conscious of the time, but it's just crucial that we shit on Tim Wilson before you go. You did write a great piece, which I recommend people check out. Tim Wilson, what was it? The worst possible choice for Shadow Treasurer, apparently. He's in there, and he's been singing as well. But first of all, just briefly summarize, like, why do you think Wilson is such the worst? What'd you say? The worst possible choice for Shadow Treasurer under the new Angus Taylor regime as leader of the Liberal Party?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to this whole like wanting the coalition to recognise the kind of structural inequality baked into our system and sort of rein it back in a bit and realise, all those people who are leaving you for One Nation, they're not the rich retirees like enjoying capital gains tax exemptions. Like,
yes.
If you
the
want
people of Goldstein, for example, who probably do fit into that category, and Tim Wilson probably represents relatively well, or at least gets them.
Does a fabulous job. Good for him.
Yes. Yeah.
But in terms of like the direction the Liberal Party needs to take if it wants to win back this like aggrieved, struggling voter base that's going to One Nation, Tim Wilson, like former policy director at the IPA, free marketeer, is not the direction that they should be taking. I think the capital gains thing and the way he immediately has been attacking the government on that just shows where his head is at. It's to protect the rich, and that's the only setting he has.
He's small government. He was once known as Freedom Boy. He's a real weirdo too. I want everyone to know this. He had giant portraits of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher like on his bedroom wall. Okay, that's a thing that he chose to do voluntarily. Very strange man. That should everyone should know that fact about Tim Wilson as much as possible. However, you would have to say that he has had form running a scare campaign, running an anti-tax campaign when it came to franking credits. Again, something else that most people couldn't possibly understand in 2019, is able to whip up fear around this and is already turned around on something like reducing the discount for capital gains tax as a new housing tax being rolled out by Labor. So that's sort of certainly his strategy. He's also very proud of himself for coming up with this putting debt fuel on the inflation fire. This is a line that he says at every possible opportunity. I don't know if you saw him on 7:30 when he was being interviewed about the Susan Lee being rolled by Angus Taylor. He managed to constantly turn it around to debt on the inflation fire and to help people earn more and get ahead and stuff. But he clearly loves it a lot. What's the deal
Wilson,
here?
Who created the debt, man? Like, what? Wasn't that the Morrison method?
That was a lot of debt along there. Yes, debt is a very convenient weapon, of course, when you're in opposition to beat the government with. Of course, on my view, or the more MMT sympathetic view, debt is like nowhere near as important as people think it is.
Yes.
But he certainly loves to get this idea.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, yes, this song, we should play a little bit of the song.
Play the song.
Do, 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 do. The Treasurer did start the inflation fire. The inflation's burning while the Treasurer's squirming. The Treasurer did start the inflation fire. Yes, he poured petrol on it and he cashed organised crime to fuel it.
Amazing stuff. I mean, I thought that was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life in Australian politics. I don't think he was having fun. It wasn't funny or interesting. It was like sad and pathetic and gives the signal that he's not taking this shit seriously. He was clearly happy with it and felt like it would get him some clicks and stuff. But what is seriously the thinking process there?
You know what's amazing is like just to pull the curtain back on this show and the way it's made. Like you did not play the clip for us just then. But when you said, let's play the clip, and it started, like I heard it in my head. I will give him that. It was an earworm. It was catchy.
But it doesn't even scan. The Treasurer did start the inflation fire. The inflation's burn. It's like you need to make the syllables match the original song, Tim. Otherwise you look foolish and ridiculous.
Yeah, he did look a little bit foolish. We can definitely agree on that.
All right, you got to go. Thank you so much, Rachel. A pleasure as always. We will wait with bated breath to see how all this rolls out. If I had to predict it now, I think there will be some movement in the budget on both negative gearing and capital gains tax. It'll be nowhere near enough, and it'll probably be mixed in with a bunch of weird spending cuts and income tax cuts as well that the government will triumph. But I guess we'll have to wait until May to find out the deal there. Do you have anything in particular you want to plug? If people want to find out your writing or hear more from you, where can they go?
Look, I have a new series, a limited series with Quacky at the moment called Breaking Ranks, talking to people in the parties who are willing to speak out. We're 2 weeks in and I've found actually some of the people who love speaking out no longer want to speak out. Super fun. But I am chatting to Ed Husick on Monday for a piece on Tuesday, so look out for that one.
Great. Good one. Thank you, Rachel Withers. Pleasure to see you as always, my friend.
Likewise.
Final little call to action for me too. On Sunday, March 29th in Naarm, there's going to be a rally for Palestinian Land Day at the State Library in Melbourne. If you're not familiar, this is a day to commemorate the ongoing theft of Palestinian land. Land Day, or Yom al-Ard, observed annually on March 30th, commemorates the 1976 killing of 6 unarmed Palestinian citizens by Israeli forces during protests against land confiscation in the Galilee. It marks a central day of resistance against ongoing Israeli occupation, illegal settlement expansion, and land expropriation. I'm sure there are lots of stuff happening across the country. The 30th is actual Land Day itself, but on the Sunday there'll be lots of rallies. Please check them out. Students for Palestine, a whole bunch of pro-Palestinian organisations are coming together. And if you're in Melbourne at 12 p.m. at the State Library, that's where that rally is happening. Thanks for listening to the show. Please give us a follow on all the social medias. We're at Serious Danger AU all over the place. You can email us anytime, hello@seriousdangerpod.com. Give us a share. Send your favourite episode to your favourite person. And let's grow this bad boy. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.